Good morning, welcome to EduSec Network. Friend, as you know, today we are going to discuss media research. And in media research, writing a research proposal, though it appears very easy, but when we really start writing a proposal, it becomes difficult. Why? Because you don't have proper knowledge, proper guidance, or what you need to write. So we have organized this lecture to understand what is the exactly research proposal is, what are the different components. We'll try to have a discussion on different components so that will help us to formulating the research proposal, and we'll also have a clear idea of how many chapters you need to have for a particular research, what are their arrangements, so different aspects of writing a research proposal discussing to the lecture. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in studio an eminent personality, Professor Devesh Kishore. He is an academician, author, researcher. He has written many books on the research and presently a new book is likely to come from the Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University for Journalism and Mass Communication. And Professor Kishore is active in different forum. He is a member of EMPC and in electronic media that is in IGNOU under the INV Ministry. And he is also advisor to diploma in health communication, that is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. He is advisor director of International Center of Economy and Journalism and Communication. And in the last 40 years, he has been teaching in different universities and has guided many students and many researchers, starting from the Indian Institute of Mass Communication to different other institutions. And he has been formerly director of communication in Indira Gandhi National Open University. So naturally his knowledge, skill and experience will help us to understand this topic, and will give an insight how to write a research proposal, and the guidance will help us immensely in writing our proposal for any purposes. So on your behalf, I welcome him for EduSec lecture on this very topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Amrendra. Well, you have already explained what is the purpose of today's presentation and discussion. We will be focusing today how to write a research proposal, and when proposals are finalized, how do we write a research report? What are the important components of a research proposal? And under each component, what are the important points which we must consider while developing a proposal or while writing a report of the proposal. So today's discussion will be mainly on these components of research proposal. The first important component is the title of your proposal. Title is said to be just like a face of a person. In the same way, if your title is attractive, interesting, draws the attention of the people, and intelligible, then everybody would like to go through your research proposal. Therefore, the title plays a very important role. Anybody who reads your report, who reads your proposal, he first reads the title. And if title is ambiguous, title is not clear, title is not understood, it does not reflect what research you have done, then it creates more confusion and also brings down the credibility of the researcher. Therefore, let us consider what are the points to be considered while finalizing the title. The title, the first thing is, it should be brief as possible. But it does not mean that it should be like which will create confusion among the people, and it should be specific. When I say specific, specific has got different connotation. That means to the point. It must reflect the important aspects of your research project. There are three basic things. When I say reflecting, it means it must reflect the content of the research problem. Suppose you are analyzing the effectiveness of a media, of a medium, then you must be very specific, whether you are doing for television or you are doing for radio or you are doing for newspaper. And if your title is to measure the effectiveness of a mass media, now that does not gives you a correct picture, because it does not tells you, it does not give you the information whether it's a radio or television or newspaper. So therefore, while you are finalizing the title, see that the content of your research problem must be reflected into it. Second thing is the subject of the research problem. Research problem may have several things. It may be effect, it may be impact. Now we must know what is the difference between effect and impact. If it is not clearly known, then if you are writing impact of television and you are really seeing in methodology the effect of television, then these are the two different things. Therefore, title has not been properly framed. It has to be framed in that way. Next point is, fourth point is, your title must be sharply focused. Sharply, when I say, it means whatever work you are going to do as a research, it must come there itself. It should not be ambiguous. It should not be hidden somewhere. It should be very clear. And fifth very important thing is properly worded. I have seen number of titles where the confusion among the readers arose because the properly words were not selected. And the words had two meanings, or the words used in different context. So therefore that has to be seen. And as I said earlier, it should be meaningful and unambiguous. So therefore, we must go through the title number of times, discuss with seniors, discuss with others, and see how they interpret and what meaning they draw out of it. If it is the same meaning which you have in your mind, then it means your title is good enough. But different persons, different viewers, members of the audience give you different meaning out of it. It means it has not been properly worded. It is still confusing. So the title of the research problem has to be very clearly written, and it doesn't come in one stroke. It takes time, because you have several things in your mind to be covered under that research project. So therefore, you go on discussing, you go on thinking on that topic, and then work it out, the title. Sometimes title is also when the researcher has gone through the research and then he finds the whole total thing is not reflecting in my research title, especially when the PhD students and master degree students, when they want to change the title, then it becomes difficult, because they are approved by academic bodies like maybe Departmental Research Committee, maybe Research Committee of the university, and without their approval you can't change it. So be careful while finalizing your title. Must consider pros and cons of the title, must consider their different meanings, and must consider whether this gives you the proper understanding of the subject matter, content, and the issues which you want to study. So the first component, friends, is title. Second is the introduction. You can say first chapter of your research report, our research proposal. Now what introduction should contain? I have seen introduction running to 20 to 40 pages. Now that has got no meaning, in the sense that major portion of your thesis or your research has gone to the introduction. While introduction is important and very important, but it must contain all those subheadings or all those points which make your introduction very interesting and need-based, research-based. Number one, in the introduction you must describe the importance of your research issue. Whatever research problems or research issue you have selected, discuss the importance of that in the present context. Why it is important to study this? What will give to the reader, viewers, or the policymakers, how they will be benefited? All that perhaps will directly, indirectly will come here. Then next point is, when you have given the importance of your research problem, the second is a statement of the problem. What does statement means? A statement means a detailed description of your research problem which you would like to tell the readers so that they understand that what are the things which have been included here. The next one is the need. Why are you doing the research? What are the advantages of this research? Who will be benefited? All that perhaps can be reflected here. Next is the objectives, which is very important. If objectives are not worked out, then it's very difficult for a researcher to adopt a direction in which he should go. He will go astray. That means he has a topic but he doesn't know what are the objectives. Then he will be going through all the literature. He will be going through and discussing several issues related to that topic. No. Objectives you must decide. When you have decided the title, you decide the objectives. In which direction you want to go for conducting the research. And what will be your directions. Make it very clear itself in the introduction. So introduction must include the statement of the problem and need and then objectives. So that the objectives, most of the people, most of the readers, they just read the titles and they go straight to objectives. Because they know this is the topic and under which direction the researcher wants to conduct the research. Then of course the scope, utility, limitations. I find sometimes limitations are not indicated. Limitation in what sense? Limitation in the sense of sample. Your sample may be small, or you may have adopted a methodology in which few number of respondents or families have been taken. Maybe because you don't have that much of time, energy, so you might have taken 2 newspapers, or you may have taken only 5 issues of that newspaper, whatever. Your limitations will help the reader to understand up to what extent your findings should be acceptable and should be adopted. If there is a policymaker going through your research report, then he knows these are the limitations, therefore these will be applicable only in this condition, in this area, and then it will work. So please keep in mind the limitations. The other important thing which I find is mostly missing is the explanation of keywords. Whatever keywords are there in your topic, in your objectives which you have used, give the meaning of keywords, define them properly in your perspective, what should be the definition of a particular word. So therefore the keywords, whichever they have been used in introduction or title, if you have meaning, then explain it properly, or if you are taking the concept from somewhere, then mention it there itself. This is a definition of this word taken from such and such book and such place. So these are the about 9 or 10 important points to be considered while writing the introduction. From my point of view, a introduction must have the importance, a statement of the problem, objectives, and keywords. This is a minimum. Otherwise, other things should also be there, and there is no harm. This gives you more weightage for your research project. So when you are writing the introduction, don't run into pages after pages. Try to see that these points are covered as briefly as possible, and also the reader should be able to understand that this is what you are interested in, and this is the introduction of the problem.
Can we understand this introduction chapter in through a case study, giving certain
Yes.
examples so that one can feel that this chapter how to be written? Like
Very good question. I think we should have a discussion on each topic, maybe a sort of a case study where you can bring out some student's problem, or you can invite some of your viewers to send you the titles and send you the what they have included in introduction,
Okay.
so that we can also have real discussions, and their problems, research problems, can be also discussed threadbare.
Okay.
But
But before we move further, we would like to understand that what should be written in importance and need section.
yes. Now let us understand this. There are, first point was importance, second is statement of the problem, third was the need. Now the question is, how importance para or paras would be different from the need paras in the introduction chapter.
Right.
We should clearly understand. What is importance? Importance means you are going to introduce your problem to the reader. Let's say if you are going to study the impact of TV on the violence of children.
Okay.
So title is Impact of Television on the violence being created among the children.
Okay.
So now the point is, first thing is the importance. Now importance in the introduction chapter, you will say the children, it has been observed or is being observed, the children from the earlier decade and this decade, they are becoming more aggressive, they are becoming more violent, and this is general observation. We see in the press, we see the reports, so this comes under, and if this aggression grows, or if we don't know how to control, or the children after becoming the youth, they don't know how to control this, then they will be in real problem. The whole society will be aggressive, in fighting mood, and they will not be able to consider the pros and cons of the aggressiveness, and then there will be real difficult problem. So that comes in importance. Need. When you are saying need, why there is a need to study this problem? Then you say need, there is a need to study the problem, that why it was not happening, this aggressiveness, when the children were educated earlier in Gurukul system or earlier in teaching systems. But why this happened today? Is it only because of television, or is it because of the programs on television this aggressiveness comes, or this aggressiveness comes from the society? We don't know. We are saying that impact of television on developing aggressiveness in the students, but that has to be researched.
Okay.
Is it because of that?
And
So
no other person has taken up this
Yeah.
kind of a study.
that is what is need. Or then the objectives I think are clear. Perhaps objectives means this study. How will you go to find out that the aggressiveness among the children is increasing because of television? That means there can be 3-4 ways of studying it. You can go in different directions to study this problem. You can take up the case study, take one family or 10 families or 15 families, and each family aggressiveness can be measured among the children when they are watching the TV programs, what TV programs they are watching and all that. It means case study approach you are adopting, so your objective will be to study the families to find out the aggressiveness in the children through case study method. So that is objective. Or somebody will say, no, I will try to do it through experimental design. Somebody will say, no, I will do it through survey. Now there can be, as I discussed earlier, that there can be several approaches. It could be historical approach, it could be anthropological approach, it could be experimental approach, it could be sociological approach, it could be media approach.
So that is true, but here I have a question in introduction chapter. We not need to write the methodology we are going to adopt.
No. Introduction chapter should have only the introductory part of it, the statement of the problem, the need, the scope, the utility, the limitations, keywords used in this, and objectives.
So no the strategy what we have formulated to doing the research, that is not going to, we will not mention about the research design, we will not mention about the methodology, we are not going to mention about how to collect the data and all this.
Yes.
This will follow the later chapters.
Because we have further on chapters where we will take care of these things.
Right.
But introduction chapter is a basically introductory chapter of your research project or research proposal.
Okay, fine. Let us move.
Third component of your research is review of literature. Now, review of literature is significant to a research proposal. Why it is significant to a research proposal? Because the researcher should know in advance what type of researches have been done in this area, what are the research findings available, what is the research methodology is adopted by the earlier researchers, until unless he is aware that similar to these issues, there may not be exact issue studied earlier, but similar issue. For example, I was talking about impact of television. Television came only in 20, 25, 30 years. But before that you had a newspaper. Before that you had radio. Somebody may have studied the impact of radio on children's aggressiveness. Now, so that therefore we know how the radio has created an impact in making the children aggressive or not. So therefore, review of literature means it gives you an exposure what type of researches have already been completed, how they were conducted, how the data were analyzed, and what were the findings. So review of literature has become significantly important for researcher for this. Second thing, first thing is to make him aware what has been done. Second purpose of review of literature is that he will know what are the findings available, so that when he analyzes the data and when his research results come out, then he can compare. You see, the earlier researchers did research like on this, and he got this findings, and I got this finding. And he can also discuss, because you have a chapter on research results and discussion. So in discussion, review of literature is very useful while interpreting your results. So that is why another important point is review of literature must be done. But review of literature, when a researcher is doing it, he must arrange them systematically. And there are three methodologies to arrange the review of literature. Number one methodology is that you write down review of literature objective wise. Suppose you have decided 4 objectives or 3 objectives or 5 objectives of your research, then on each objective you can write a separate review of literature. So your review of literature will be divided on the basis of the number of objectives you have taken into consideration for the study. Second could be chronologically, date-wise, year-wise. That's systematically saying that this is what has happened in my topic, in such and such year, in such and such place, this was the research done, and these were the research results. Third can be author-wise. Author-wise means such and such person has done the research on my topic and in such and such year, and these were the results. So it is up to you to decide. But it has been experienced that review of literature arranged as per objectives of the research projects, that is very useful. Because when you say chronologically, it will get mixed up. You can't say that this objective has been taken this year, somebody may have taken, somebody may have not taken. So it becomes a mixture type of thing. Author-wise is also same thing. It becomes mixture of all the authors. And then if you want to know, then you will have to go to author and becomes difficult. So most of the researchers are now adopting a review of literature objective-wise, so that it helps in them in the discussion chapters of their thesis or their research report. So that is up to you to decide. So third component was review of literature. First was title, second was introduction, third is review of literature.
Here I would like to understand, because most of the students who are taking up the research, what they do, they read the books and what is finding they find, just jot down them. This has been the outcome of this book, this has been written and not that. So while writing review of literature, they should mention that the author has adopted such kind of methodology, such kind of limitation was with him, and what he got as a result was have this shortcomings or the strength of or weaknesses of the book or likes of outcome is this. So just write down the findings.
Yes, when he is writing the findings, if he writes the research methodology or research design or research approach, that will be very helpful.
Okay.
Because the readers will understand this was their methodology adopted.
But not necessary. It is
Not
if it does so, it's okay. But if it doesn't, so it's not expected.
Yes.
The second question I'd like to ask you: how many literature we reviewed, and what should be the criteria of finding the related literature on the particular topic?
You see, the point is, number of literature to be reviewed cannot be decided. There may be research issues where nobody might have studied earlier. Then how can you say there will be literature review? Or there may not be similar studies available. Or a topic where can be hundreds of researches have already been done. So he may have to review 200. It depends upon the topic which you have selected and earlier research work done on that topic. So numbers can never be decided. It can be 10, 15, 20, 30, it depends upon but it is expected from the researcher that he has exhausted all the literature available on this particular topic. That is expected.
Okay.
He may have missed some, you cannot blame him because he is not able to approach that, or he might have not got it. Somebody else got it. So therefore, but it is expected from him that he will try his level best,
Okay.
keep all his resources in mind, and go through the whatever research findings are
Okay,
available.
another question related to this is this. Now earlier it was only book that was people were reading. Now the journals, articles, the newspaper article, that is also becoming a base of refuting or substantiating the objective.
Yes.
So that piece of writing will also be claimed as a literature of review, and that may mentioned or not mentioned.
You see, when
Just
we
a
say,
cursive reference be given.
when we say literature
Yeah,
review, literature does not mean
only book.
only books, journals, magazines, no.
Yeah.
It could be even reports, it could be even something published in some magazine type of things. It could be appeared on radio, it could have appeared on television, anything.
Okay. So anything that comes in the knowledge of the researcher, they can cite here in the literature review.
That is very important.
Okay.
You must go through all these types of literature and take care of it and note it down.
Okay.
Other thing, important thing is whatever literature you collect, the detailed reference must come under the last chapter. There is a bibliography.
Okay.
You can't just leave it there. If you have read a report, research report, then you will just mention the name of their year and report, but in bibliography all details are available.
Okay.
If somebody wants to read it, he can go through the report itself. So while doing the review of literature, you must note it down, all the details which have to be given in bibliography.
Okay.
Otherwise later on it is very difficult to find them out. That is important. Third thing, since you have asked the question, review of literature, if you are going to write, don't use a register and all that, copies. What you should do, in the market there are cards available, reference cards are available. When you note down on a card. Why? Because later on you can classify the cards, keep objective wise in different. If you have 4 objectives, then you will have 4 classified cards. So it's very easy to shuffle the cards. And then from that bunch, you can write down the full review of literature on that objective. Because if you write it in a book or on a notebook or in your register, every time you have to turn the pages. In that process, you might forget something. So there are reference cards available. On each reference card, you write down all the details, and then later on, you just classify them objective wise and then write the. So it will help you, assist you in organizing the matter better, and also it will help you in writing the review of literature.
Okay. Fine.
Then we go to the next, fourth, which we discuss, research methodology, which is again a very important chapter of the report or of the proposal. Now the question is what research methodology chapter should be. Again here, research methodology, it's better to write down objective wise, because for each objective there may be different approaches or there may be same approaches. But the point is, when the approaches changes objective wise, it should be written according to that. Now research approaches we know, I just discussed. For one objective you may have historical approach, another objective you may have anthropological approach, third objective you may have sociological approach, because it's not necessary that one approach will work for all the objectives. You will go on changing methodology for objectives to be studied. So therefore, you must decide what research approach will work for which type of objectives, and then you write it down to study this objective. I adopted anthropological approach, or I adopted sociological approach. Then the next question comes research design. Because research design will be accordingly the objectives you have already developed. So research design may not be similar for all the objectives. It may differ, or it may have two objectives in one design, research design, and another three objectives in another research design. So therefore research design should be given. It may be experimental design, or it could be a sort of ex post facto design. We have a lot of designs available. Then third comes the research method. Approaches and methods are different. Sometimes we get confused. Approaches are basically a larger body of methodology of doing the research. As I was saying, anthropological approach, sociological approach, approach used in economics. So there are different ways. All of us know that there are different subjects, and each subject has developed its own approach. But when we come to the methods, research methods, then there we have to be very clear which method we are going to adopt. Is an experimental method? Is a survey method? Because methods can be applicable to all the approaches. Case study method, observation method. Let's say case study. Now case study can be done in historical approach, case study can be done in anthropological approach, case study can be done in sociological approach. So method may remain the same, but approaches may change. And in one approach the methods may change. So let us not get confused with the approach and methods. Some students, I have seen researchers, they get confused. So therefore, we should be very clear. Next important thing is, in this chapter, is hypothesis. You must clearly spell out hypothesis. For each objective, there could be one hypothesis, there can be two hypotheses, there can be three hypotheses. As discussed in earlier presentation, what is hypothesis? Hypothesis means your assumptions, what you think, and therefore this comes in the hypothesis. And then you have to use tools. Don't confuse methods and tools. Schedule is a tool. Questionnaire is a tool. Questionnaire is not a method. Questionnaire can be used for a method. Method can be used for an approach. So approach, method and tools. Like this we go on increasing our research approaches, designs, methods and tools. I find some of the researchers get confused in this process. They think methods are approaches, sometimes consider tool as a methods. Tool remains the tool by which you collect the data. So therefore, this should be a very clear concept, and it should be explained well in this chapter of research methods. Research method chapter also includes the sampling design. How you have selected a particular newspaper, or how you have selected a particular group of respondents, what has been sampling design, and as you know, the sample's main purpose is to select a representative of the universe. So you have to decide, was it a random sampling, purposive sampling, or whatever sampling it was, so that the reader must know. So sampling design methodology has to be explained. Next in this chapter of methodology is statistical techniques. What statistical techniques you are using? Details of those techniques may be regression, correlation, t-test, f-test, whatever you are going to do use. The next thing in this chapter is conceptual framework and operational definitions. What does it mean? It means any word which you have used. For example, I was just saying aggressiveness. Now aggressiveness has to be defined. Who is aggressive, who is not aggressive? So you will have to give a conceptual framework of aggressiveness and operational definition. In this research project, this is the meaning of aggressiveness. And this is the way how I define. So that is operational definitions. And then we also simplify it by saying these are my methods and tools, and I have collected data objective wise and all that. So this is the question which you raised earlier. Research methodology does not come under the introduction chapter. Research methodology, all details will come under this research methodology chapter, which is followed after the review of literature. Is that I hope this will make the point clear.
Yeah.
This I have already discussed, research approaches, research designs also I have discussed, research methods also I have explained to you. Why I am repeating this, that if you have any questions or anything which is not very clear, hypothesis I always emphasize. Hypothesis is a relationship between two or more variables. Last time I discussed perhaps, variable is the characteristics of the respondent. So hypothesis is based basically on two variables, and then we find out whether these variables are connected or they have got relationship or not. If they do not have the relationship, then we say the hypothesis is not proved and it becomes a null hypothesis. The research tools I have discussed. What research tools? Questionnaire, schedule, case study, interviews, focus, they will come under this. Then sampling I would like to emphasize little better. Sampling, when we say, it has four important subdivisions. Number one is the sampling design. You will have to say in research methodology chapter, what is your sampling design? It was a quota sampling design. It was stratified random sampling. It was whatever. There are 7, 8 types of sampling designs. You will say, for this I have selected quota sampling, for this I have selected random sampling. Like that you will design. So you say this is the sample design. And then comes the sample plan. Once you have decided the designs are designed, then you will say how this design was implemented, how it was planned. For example, if from a village I have to collect the data, first thing is I must have the list of families living in that village. And from that I will select randomly using a random table. Maybe families may be limiting to 15 or 20. So that becomes my sampling design and sample plan. That's how I am going to do it. Then the next is sampling frame. How many people will come under that frame? And then comes the sampling unit. Under the frame, there could be some 10 units, there could be 15 units, there could be 5 units. So it starts like this. Lewis's unit, then above the unit is the frame, from frame it becomes plan, and plan makes the design. If you start like this, you start from the top, then first comes the sample design, then comes the sample plan, then comes the sampling frame, then comes the sampling unit. So therefore, we must clearly work out, write it down, that what is the sampling methodology we have adopted in this research project. Here also some people, some of the research workers do not clearly specify that what was their research, what was their sampling design plan, etc., etc. Keep in mind that if you keep these subtopics in mind, you will be able to develop a good sampling plan for your research project. Then we come to the statistical techniques, which is full of another branch of science, statistical, and you will have to take the help of a person who is more knowledgeable about the statistics. But you must know which technique you would like to use. It means at least you should have that much of information that these are the tests meant for this purpose. You may not know in detail how to use that test, how to conduct, how to put data into that. That is the later part. But you must know, suppose I want to find out the relationship between two variables. What should I do? Then I should use correlation method, which I should work out R values. R values will give me a correct picture. There are different formula for that. But I must know that to find out the relationship between two variables or more variables, there is a test like correlation. Or suppose I want to find out the analysis of variance in series, and what I should do. Then I say I will go for F-test, and F-test is analysis of variance. So you should have preliminary information, at least understanding that where which test should be applied and why it should be applied and what is the use of this test. Only this much. Rest you can go to computer. There are a lot of softwares available. You can feed the data on the softwares, or you can go to a statistician who can give you the whole advice, analyze your data for yourself. So a statistician can be of great help. Then we come to the conceptual framework and operational definitions. What is conceptual framework? I think last time you were mentioning about Naxalism.
Yeah, Naxalism coverage in news.
Naxalism. And how do you define Naxalism? Naxalism in America, Naxalism in UK, Naxalism in India. How do you define what components you will take into consideration? So therefore, you have to give a theoretical framework. Who will be called Naxalite? How Naxalism is created? How it grows? So some information to make the conceptual framework clear has to be given. And then you give the operational definition. Whatever words you are using, their operational definition, which you think is appropriate. In some cases, it could be different. But what definition you have taken for study for that particular phenomena, that on that basis you will work out the operational definitions of the various words, keywords used by you in your research project. Then we come to data collection method. Data collection method, as I was saying, research method, research tool, which has to be understood. Research method is a survey, for example, here. Research tool is a questionnaire schedule. Data collection method is, how do I collect data? Myself? Or I appoint the investigators? Or I take my friends, students? Or I collect online? Or I take the help of the school teachers? I may use several of the data collection methods, and then on this basis possible, because it's not possible for the researcher to go from place to place in himself. Therefore, he distributes his work among the researchers, explain them well, so that they can go and collect the data. So therefore, you have to have data collection methods worked out in terms of appointment of surveyors, those who will be collecting data, investigators, and all that has to be taken into consideration. And I think the most important chapter is the analysis and findings. The findings which are based on the analysis of your data which has been collected, that has to be represented through various tables, diagrams of various types, graphic designs, that has to be used for this purpose. And the last and least important thing is the conclusions and implications. After all, you have done so much of work, then what do you conclude from this? And these conclusions, how do they imply? How the policymakers will make use of it? How the persons who are involved in that type of phenomena, how they can take advantage of your research findings. So therefore, you have to write down the conclusions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever the list of conclusions, or paras of conclusions, and then how these conclusions can be implemented. Who can be the person greatly benefited by these conclusions? And then you will find that the conclusions are really helpful to you. And the last 7 is the reference and bibliography. There is an international style of writing the bibliography. First, name of the author, year, name of the report, page numbers, and name of the publisher. I find some people don't follow it, and it becomes a really messy thing. It should not be done. We should follow the important methodologies for reference and bibliography. Friends, I think if these 7 important things, steps have been followed, it is much easier for you to come out with a good report, good research work. We have discussed basics of a research proposal, research report. Of course, research report writing is a science and art, both. How you can make your report more interesting. That care is to be taken. And that is the purpose of today's discussion, that we should be able to do that. Maybe I was proposing that in next session, whenever available, we can take up all these 7 points in mind and take a case study which you will suggest, a problem which you will suggest, and then we can go through all the 7 major chapters on that particular topic to have better understanding, better analysis of that. But before you do that, you must study well about all these 7 chapters to be there in a research proposal. Then only you can take the advantage of it. If you don't understand all the basic points which are included, on which the 7 chapters are based, you will not be really able to take the advantage. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or anything in your mind,
I will just move further on after this, because there are many people, those who are already submitted, are about to submit the report. What they do, they transform it into book form. So in that case, how the chapterization and how the things he need to modify or do, because general feeling that we should get book out of this our thesis.
yes, I have also seen many of the research reports have been published in a book form.
Mm.
Now let us understand that research reports are useful for whom? The policymakers, decision makers, future researchers, those who want to conclude certain things and implement it, and solution of different problems. Research reports are based for this, are meant for this. But when you are writing a book, you are writing that research report for a wider group of audience, more number of readers. Some readers may not be interested that much in your research data, but they may be interested to have a better understanding or research angle to that problem solution. Then they go to the research data and collect it from that point of view. So when you are writing a book, you must understand it will be widely read. He may not be a researcher. He may not be a person who is involved in research methodology, but he is more interested in the findings and conclusions and the processes, general processes, how this data was collected, information was collected. So therefore, when you are making a book, you have to understand that this is a presentation for a wider audience of different varieties and different interests, and this should be done in that way.
Okay. So this should be kept in the mind when one really want to transform in the book form. And friend, in today's lecture we try to understand the already mentioned 7 to 8 7 components, which is very necessary for writing any proposals. So I think you have got the point, and it will certainly help you for writing a proposal. So with this word and this hope, we conclude the lecture. I thank Professor Devesh Kishore for giving such an insightful lecture and guiding all of us for writing report proposals. So I again thank all of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.